سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Honorable Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad, Vice Chancellor, Rifa International University, Islamabad, Pakistan. Honorable Dr. Prof. Fauzan, Deputy Director for Student Affairs and Community Engagement. My dear colleagues, dear students, participants on Zoom and YouTube, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to sit with well-learned, eminent Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad, who has been instrumental to not only Islamization of knowledge, but also in the advancement of Islamic scholarship worldwide. Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad has been the Dean of our Kulliyah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences from 1990 to 94. During this period, he developed this Kulliyah, and the Kulliyah is today in this beautiful and remarkable shape because of his contributions and sacrifices for the development of this Kulliyah. Before we proceed further to discuss and to have discourse with him on the subject matter, let me invite Brother Mutiur Rahman, a student of the Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religion, to recite a few verses from the Holy Quran.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. خلق الإنسان من علق. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى. كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى. إن إلى ربك الرجعى. أرأيت الذي ينهى عبدا إذا صلى أرأيت إن كان على الهدى أو أمر بالتقوى أرأيت إن كذب وتولى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you very much, Brother Mutiur Rahman, for your beautiful recitation of the verses from Surah Al-Alaq. Thank you once again. With this, we move on to the next level. We are fortunate to have with us our Honorable Deputy Rector, Dr. Professor Dr. Muhammad Fauzan bin Nuruddin. He is our Deputy Director for Student Affairs and Community Engagement. He has been very busy, and today he has a keynote speech to be delivered somewhere in Kuala Lumpur. Because of our special request, Dato has agreed to join us for the first half an hour. Thank you very much, Dato, for your kindness and willingness to give opening remarks. So with this, may I respectfully call upon Dr. Fauzan to deliver a welcoming speech. فليتفضل.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. All praise to Allah SWT. Salam to our Prophet Muhammad. Thank you, Prof. Sama, Director of IIMU, and my respected Murabi, my teacher, Prof. Ahmad. We know him more than 30 years, since 1991, and he's been guided us in this university. He's considered he's among the fathers of IIUM, among Prof. Hamid Abu Sulaiman and Prof. Kamal Hassan. And because we need you at this juncture, and we know very well that Prof. Anis, when he was the Dean in Islamic Religion Knowledge and Sciences, he recruits some of the what you call the young students like you guys today, and now they are the Dean for Quran, for Rahmatullah Khan, for Tahir Musawi. Now they can we are young before. In 1991, we met in PJ, we in a wooden house, wooden building, still remember. But you are recruiting us. Alhamdulillah, now we are in position to implement the Islamization of knowledge. And Prof. Osman our rector, good friend of yours. And I'm glad we met our Prime Minister yesterday. And you remember 1998, I'm driving you at night to meet Dr. Syama, where we are in the crisis at that time, 1998. And with your wisdom of word, we are very calm. After come back from his Anwar's house, we are very calm. What to do? After 30 years, 20 years more, now we are in the government, and now we want to bring back this Islamization and Tawhidic. And Datuk Sri Anwar is always promoting this Madani. Prof. Tahir Musawi want to check on me just now. What Islamization under Madani or Madani and Islamization? I told him that Madani is under Islamization. Islamization is under Tawhidic. So Tawhidic is the main our vision and mission. We want to bring back this translation of knowledge, and how we're going to implement it. We're going to implement Madani. Actually, I'm going to deliver talk 10:45 AI, artificial intelligence, the Madani model in the professional of they call it International Conference of Computer Society of IEEE in Vienna Hotel. Then how are we going to bring back the understanding of Islamization knowledge? Like Prof. Tahir Musawi said, now they want to humanize, humanize the AI, and to AI they humanize. So the opposite. So how are we going to solve it? So how are we going to solve it? We have to through Islamization knowledge. I want to quote before I want to end. Allah SWT remind us in his surah At-Tin, laqad khalaqnal insana fi ahsani taqwim. Allah create us the best creation, but we can be the worst. Summa radadnahu asfala safilin. This my teacher is from. I cannot quote Quran if I don't learn from Prof. Anis Ahmad, because I'm guided Amerikiyun wa Britannia. Graduate from US 6 years and UK 3 years. When I joined IIUM way back 1991, I learned Islamization knowledge from Prof. Anis Ahmad. I don't want to delay. I really appreciate young generation. Please learn. Prof. Anas will be here like a couple of days, but going back. But we hope he will come back again. I hope he will be back with us again in our universities, inshallah, and to guide us, to teach us on Islamization knowledge. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Fauzan, our Deputy Director for Student Affairs and Community Engagement, for giving us this time. I know, and we all know that your time is very precious, but again, because of the presence of our Honorable Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad, you have been able to allocate a few minutes. Thank you very much for your kindness. May Allah bless you. Alhamdulillah. With this, we move on to the actual session of today. We have with us, as I said in the beginning, Honorable Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad, who is currently the Vice Chancellor of Rifa International University, Islamabad, Pakistan. But for the benefit of our audience here, as well as our audience on Zoom, as well as YouTube, let me briefly present before you his background. Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad is a distinguished Pakistani social scientist, educationist, and professor of Islam. Over 5 decades, he has significantly contributed to Islamic scholarship, earning recognition and awards such as the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan Award and a fellowship from University Science Malaysia. I just mentioned a few because of our time constraint. Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad has held several prestigious academic and administrative positions, including first Vice President, International Islamic University, Islamabad, where he established the Dawah Academy, where he was also a director for a long time. He was also the first dean of Faculty of Usuluddin and Faculty of Islamic Social Sciences, International Islamic University of Islamabad. And more importantly, he was the dean of the Kulliyah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences from 1990 to 94. He has also been instrumental to developing this Kulliyah and its infrastructure. Not only this, Professor Anis Ahmad was engaged in preparing the entire undergraduate and postgraduate curriculum of all the departments within the Kulliyah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, which is now known as Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman Kulliyah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, because Abdul Hamid was our second rector, and Prof. Anis Ahmad has been with him in the US for a long time. His groundbreaking work in comparative religious studies and the Islamization of knowledge has left an indelible mark on Islamic academia. Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad was instrumental in developing the concept of Islamization of knowledge during his tenure as Secretary General and later President of the Association of Muslim Social Scientists, founded in 1972 at the Illinois Institute of Technology. So Islamization of knowledge has the history formally from 1972 when Prof. Anis, along with other great minds, were there in the United States. His efforts alongside luminaries like Professor Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi advanced this transformative intellectual movement. Of course, if I were to read his biodata, it will take about 1 hour and the session will come to an end. So in order to provide maximum time for our honorable professor, I have shortened the information about him. So with this, may I respectfully and honorably call upon Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad to deliver his speech. And we have been thinking about this topic, which is Islamization of knowledge, personal reflections, and the agenda for the future. So kindly share with your experience as well as provide us the way forward. Thank you very much, Prof.
My very dear brother, Professor Tamim Usama, my dear brothers, Professor Tahir Misawi, Professor Rahmatullah, Professor Mumtaz, faculty members, young scholars, I'm highly privileged to be here this morning and share with you in some of my reflections on how this whole movement has taken a recognizable shape at global level. As mentioned by Professor Tamim Usama, the story goes back to around 1972, when in Chicago, a conference was held. And in that conference, AMSS was established. But let me share with you in very frank words, it is incorrect to take credit for this concept and attribute that to any one individual. Intellectual movements globally are not solar flights. Intellectual contributions come when minds of different people get together, work together, and develop an understanding. If I translate that into our traditional terminology, then we can say that individual ijtihadat converge into an ijma, and ijma becomes a known fact for the age. So this is a kind of ijma which has developed as a result of different minds contributing together. Why I say so? Because I am an eyewitness to this movement. I'm not an outsider who may have heard from second sources, third sources, and discovered this process of Islamization. I heard personally from Abu Ala Maududi in 1962, his speech in which he called for Islamization of knowledge by first analyzing existing social science paradigm, telling us that whether it's political science, sociology, or psychology, or law, all are based on an imported Eurocentric approach. Therefore, whatever is taught for 2 centuries in the so-called Muslim world is essentially a translation in Arabic, in Persian, in Bahasa Malayo, in Urdu, in any languages of what has been said by Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, Malthus, and so on and so forth. All those texts have been translated in so-called native languages, whether Arabic or others. And based on that, people have been analyzing social problems, psychological problems, political problems. Therefore, he called for a revision and a reconstruction of thought. This was in 1962. But going back, Iqbal in 1930s delivers lectures and calls those lectures reconstruction of religious thought in Islam, which means religious thought need to be reconsidered, revised. And there again, he says that we need to have ijtihad. And more importantly, what he says in his lectures is that Tawheed is the basis of all thought in Islam. His words are very important. He says that state is a manifestation of Tawheed in space-time. I'm quoting his words exactly. And that means political thought, economic thought, social thought, all is based on Tawheed. Now, I can keep on tracing further back to Shah Waliullah Dehlvi and many others who raised same issues and focused on Tawheed. Ibn Abdul Wahab did not go any further. All he said was Tawheed is the basis. So to take credit by saying I have invented Islamization of knowledge is a very unethical approach. Ethics requires we recognize all these contributions of scholars who have pointed out only one fact, and that one fact is Tawheed has to be the basis. Unfortunately, Tawheed has been understood as theology and not as the dynamic principle which persuades human mind to develop a unified approach. The malaise of Western thought is, it is a fragmented philosophy. It's a philosophy fragmented in materialism, in rationalism, in mysticism, in atheism, in secularism, in modernism, postmodernism, existentialism. You name any of the systems of the West, and these are fragmented ideas. For existentialists, individual is the most authentic source of knowledge. I'm just quoting their own words, terms. Individual is the authentic source of knowledge. For the so-called people who depend on speculation, human thought is everything. For some others, empirical reality, whether it's John Stuart Mill or Malthus or many others, they come up with one and same, and that means reduction of knowledge to one dimension. I call all these approaches reductionist because they reduce knowledge to one dimension and then think human being is either a social animal, economic animal, an animal based on instincts and desires and drives, Sigmund Freud and others, an animal based on socialization, as if monkeys don't socialize. No, monkeys don't socialize. We don't call them human beings because they socialize. Yet, they define human being as socializers. So all these approaches are fragmented and not holistic. What Iqbal and Maududi mean is that Islamic approach provides a holistic vision to human life. When we use the term Islamization, it appeals Muslims very well. But is knowledge only for Muslims? I'm raising this question after 40 years of involvement. There was a time when we needed to use this term because we wanted to attract young scholars from all over the world to shake them up and ask them, are you happy with the paradigm in which you are born? Or you want different paradigm? The paradigm in which they were born was Western paradigm or Eurocentric approach. What we needed was to liberate themselves from Eurocentric approach, so we use the term Islamization. That does not mean it's the ultimate term. It only means a departure from conventional approach. When we say Tawhidization or Islamization, does it make difference? If we say that Islam is the only faith which has given universal ethical values and therefore ethicalization of social sciences, does it make any difference? It's not a matter of label. It's a matter of process and ultimate outcome. If the outcome is a knowledge which is nafi, and nafi does not mean material, but that which is holistic, then you can call it by any name you like, but define it. Don't leave it loose. If you just say ethical values, Mr. X will come and say, well, I agree with you because Aristotle and so talk about ethics, and that's what you should follow. No, my point is very simple. Universal ethical principles don't exist with any human mind. Any human mind comes up with ideas which are finite. It's only revelation which provides infinite truth and reality. And therefore, universal ethical values cannot be other than what come from revelation. I don't use revelation. If I say this is revelation, it will have relevance for a Chinese, for a Tamil, for an atheist, not at all. Should I feel happy by having a club of Islamists praising each other and saying, MashaAllah, you have done a great work on Islamic thought? Does this serve the purpose? Or the purpose is to share that truth with humanity? Was Quran sent for Arabs or Turks or Malaysians? Or for the whole of humanity? Therefore, in a paper I wrote some time back in honor of Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi, who was my mentor and my very dear colleague, I said that we should move beyond Islamization and look for a global approach which can be not only presented but defended in front of secularists, people of different faith and culture. And that's why for about last 2 decades, I've been using ethicalization of social sciences and not Islamization, although I was part of that process. As mentioned by Dr. Tamim, in 1972, when we had this conference, it was not social scientists. It was social scientists as well as others. And for the record, those who were present in the conference were not just Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi and Abdul Hamid, but besides them, Hisham Al-Talib, Ahmad Tutunji, Jamal Barzanji, Mahmood Rashdan, Muhammad Shamma, uh, uh, Ilyas Ba Yunus, and many others who were not all, even some medical doctors, Ahmad Al-Qadi, not only all these persons who were concerned about development of a new paradigm, not necessarily social scientists. I read a paper on hermeneutics in that conference, and Hisham came in and said, Brother Anis, is this harmonium or hermeneutics? What is this? He was definitely an engineer, so he had every right to raise that question. So it was not just social scientists who were concerned about it. The movement began as a result of that ongoing process from Iqbal, Maududi, Muhammad Qutb, and others. Muhammad Qutb told me personally that it was for the first time when he read Mustahad al-Arba fil Quran that he had a new vision of these terms. And he was a man of literature, man of language, who knew Quran very well. Yet there were some aspects which were not understood till he recognized Ustaz Maududi's contribution. His brother, Sayyid, quotes extensively from Ustaz Maududi and does not say it's my idea, I'm giving it to the world. No, it is against Islamic scholarship. So this movement has to keep on moving. You cannot stand where you were standing 40 years back, or 30 years back, or 10 years back. I'm not saying what I'm using, ethicalization is the ultimate truth. All I'm saying is that after going through this whole process, I feel that this is a better way of communicating what is our approach. And tomorrow someone may come and use a different term, which is more comprehensive and may carry the meaning more elaborately. Now, what's Islamization? Islamization is essentially a matter of approaching human being and knowledge from a different perspective. What's that perspective? That perspective was given in the Quranic declaration you just heard, that you have to begin your intellectual journey with the help of the Creator. You cannot disregard who created universe and you. It also invites and tells us that investigate how you yourself came into being. Are you your own creator? Did you design your biological, physiological structure and then you were born? Did your parent design it? Or who designed it? Therefore, the ayah invites human mind to think that how were you created from a clot, from a gene? And then further, was it enough to be created and left to grow up in the dark? Or get guidance from where? From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Through what? Through qalam. So the Quranic recitation that was made tells us what's the meaning of Islamization. You have to investigate, you have to study, you have to make use of available resource. Qalam is not only the pen with which you write, but that's how you create knowledge, disseminate it. So Islamization means when we approach human being and knowledge with a conviction that our creation of universe, and everything we have around is not fragmented, but integrated, holistic. This is the basic difference between what people use a horrifying terminology known as epistemology. I was a fan of terminologies 50 years back. I hate now terminologies. I want to be as simple and naive as possible. If the purpose is to share knowledge, then no need to horrify people by terms. Try to use their language, talk to them so they understand. So, Islamization simply means when you are approaching knowledge and human being from the perspective of who is creator of universe and mankind and what he wants. Does he want human being to become greedy and claim to have highest level of wealth and power? Or he is the only powerful? And if he is the only powerful, then how human beings should behave? How they behave in economic matters, social matters, political matters, and so on and so forth, in knowledge as such. So Islamization, if we drop the term for a while and think from a purely ethical viewpoint as Islam has given us, then it means what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what is displeasing to him. Ethics means what pleases him. Unethical means what annoys him. Very simple words. No terminologies. You can use maruf and munkar. You can use what is hasan and what is wrong and so on and so forth, but makes no difference. If we take that approach, the question arises, is ethics absolute or subjective? The Quran answers and tells us that what is right or wrong is not for you to decide. It is objective, not subjective. So you may like something in which there may be shar for you. You may avoid something, it may have khair for you. If shar and khair cannot be judged by you alone, can you develop ethics without any help from beyond? Therefore, logically and rationally, only that ethics will be objective, which is given and not created. All that is created has to be finite and limited. All that is coming from beyond has to have permanence and universality. That's why if we say universal ethical values, then no other system of thought can claim universality. You can have an Aristotelian ethics, you can have a Austin ethics, a so-and-so ethics, but you cannot have a universal ethics except where revelation provides you those principles. This is the basis on which I have been using this term, and I believe that it has to be considered seriously by people who are involved in this process. The challenge that you have is not simple. The challenge you have is first and foremost to understand and liberate your mind from the Eurocentric paradigm of knowledge. All of you, including myself, are born in Eurocentric paradigm of knowledge. From your childhood, you were told, London Bridge is falling down. You were told, Allama Humpty and Dumpty were great persons and they fell down, broke themselves. how to put them together. Every single nursery rhyme that you were hearing from your childhood when you were just a toddler or less than toddler has made your mindset. Even today, when universities are run, then universities and students compete in finding out which university has QS ranking and the ranking. And based on that, they go for choice of their programs. Every single criteria and basis is borrowed from Eurocentric approach. If you write research paper in English, then you have Scopus indexing. If you write in Chinese, in Persian, you know Scopus ranking. In Malay, you may write an original idea, but nobody is going to accept it as scholarly unless you write in language of the colonizer. So first thing is to decolonize and get rid of definition of every single thing. What you call beauty, what you call justice, what you call fairness is all borrowed. Therefore, you have all those competitions of beauty by measuring size of body of people and declaring so and so is Mr. or Miss Universe. Everything that you do intellectually, physically, economically is borrowed. The challenge is not simple. Challenge is to first de-educate from all these concepts, realize what they are, and not just by listening to those ideas, but by going deep in those ideas. It's very easy to say Karl Marx is wrong, but why is he wrong? How many of those persons who reject Marx have read Das Kapital themselves? And how many of them have read some quotation somewhere and then declared Karl Marx is wrong? When you condemn Sigmund Freud, how many have read all his works or just heard an article about him and then you start condemning him? Therefore, first thing is to understand them as they are. That is fairness. There is honesty. Not secondary sources, but directly from the source to understand what is said. You have always heard that it is Karl Marx who has given the idea of dialectic materialism. Go and do research. It's not Sigmund, it's not Karl Marx. Friedrich Engels who gives the idea, who talks about it, who made that contribution, but no one talks about it. You have to read original texts, no other way. When you have understood those texts, you have a right to criticize them and call them wrong. And then come up with what is right. Not because you think it is right, but it is based on certain assumptions. Those assumptions are ethical principles. That's why Maruf and Munkar, Haq and Batil are not what is decided by individual. Halal or haram is not a matter of meat and toothpaste. It's a matter of thought. It's a matter of vision. It's a matter of audition. Whatever you are hearing, watching, is that halal and haram? Or you think only avoid animal fat and then you are eating halal? No, it's not confined to one single area. And all these are ethical categories, universal ethical categories. which are based on human nature of tayyib and pure and healthy, and all others are unhealthy and unproductive. Therefore, this is a simple process without going into any philosophical complications. First, you have to understand the existing environment or ecology of knowledge, and then you have to unlearn that based on very objective and fair critique, and then replace it with a new structure. This new structure has to be based on the well-known methodology of fiqh, where you have certain principles, and those principles get materialized in a corpus of law. Same has to be done in social sciences. Just as you deduce based on nusus, you have to deduce based on nusus dealing with family, economy, political life, and so on and so forth. Methodology does not change. You can add more to it, but bases remain the same. And that's how the challenge is for the young scholars to look critically and do not get entangled into meaningless debate of, is it Ismail Farooqi, Naqib al-Attas, Fazlur Rahman, Hussain Nasr, or anyone who is the inventor of this term. I have known them personally, all of them. Personally. I have been on panels with them in conferences. I have discussed with them hours and hours, not just casual meetings. And I believe none of them can claim it is my idea. Ideas are global and they emerge after long process. The same error is done by Western paradigm, which traces everything to either Aristotle or Plato or someone else, because they want to claim their royalty, ownership on knowledge. We should not fall in that trap at all. We should go for very objective and fair understanding and recognize each one's contribution. What's wrong in that? If a concept is developed by 10 people, 12 people, 20 people, what's wrong in that? Why we should always have one icon, one idol who should be praised? Why? Illogical. Therefore, this whole debate is not a matter of an institute or a person taking credit. It is need of hour. If humanity has to progress, it should not be bonded by Eurocentric approach. Eurocentric approach may be relevant for Europe. But why an anthropologist who stays in Nigeria or in Southeast Asia for 5 years and uses his binoculars, which are made in Europe, studies with them the phenomena, writes with the mind of a European, why that is the only interpretation? Why? And for that matter, please go and read dozens and dozens of books. Their titles indicate the soul of black man, the heathens, the primitives. These are titles of research works by anthropologists, sociologists. And they tell you very clearly how they are looking on the phenomena, understanding and interpreting. Their camera captures only those aspects which they want to show. Reductionist biased, racist. And that is what you have been taught in all your textbooks dealing with social sciences and applied sciences. That is the mind which has created the whole Eurocentric tradition. And unless you come out of that and think otherwise than what Western scholars are telling you, it's a fashion for people to talk about hermeneutics and say, well, this is what Gadamir has said, this is what so-and-so functionalists have said, and then they think they are scholars. No, they have said it, no problem. But having said that, does that mean it is truth? Or it means it's the individual's view? So we have to be critical and go through all those works which have been done by Westerners and even learn from them if they have something good, nothing wrong in that. But not to become subservient, not to assume their classification of knowledge is ultimate classification. We have to classify knowledge in our own way. I think this should be enough to start the discussion. My purpose was not to give you any sermon, but just share with you briefly as the topic was my reflections. And reflections mean my own personal experience. So that has been shared briefly. We can have many more questions and disagreements on what I have said, and then elaborate further on various concepts which I may have not done so. So please feel free to raise any questions if you like.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad, for your excellent presentation of your personal experience. Indeed, we have many postgraduate students and academics, and we have also 150 people on Zoom platform. Can we begin our question and answer session? Perhaps we can start with people who are from this hall first. Then I will go to the chat box to read some questions for Prof. Anis. So can we begin now? Anyone? Yeah. Yes, brother. Fazil from Pakistan.
Thank you so much.
You come there.
Thank you so much for a really insightful clarification of Islamization of knowledge. But still, I have a question because I have been here since last year, and we are listening Islamization of knowledge and integration of knowledge, and I also have done work on it. But still, when we discuss with others, some students, even they are Muslims and non-Muslims as well. So we face one question: what is the need of Islamization of knowledge? And previously in the history, our great scholars Ghazali, Ibn Rushd, Ibn Taymiyyah, and Khwarizmi, all algorithm is going on in the world on our Islamic scholars thought. So they have done a great job, but they didn't use this term Islamization of knowledge. What is the need of this term? Because we firmly believe that every knowledge is from Allah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Very good question, Masha. You know, what is the need is a very simple question, but requires a bit details. We need Islamization or ethicalization because existing knowledge said earlier is fragmented and not holistic. Secondly, existing knowledge is micro reality and not macro reality. The people you mentioned were encyclopedic scholars. They write a book on tib, a book on usul al-fiqh, and a book on tasawwuf, and a book on mantiq, and a rejection of philosophers altogether. You are living in an age of micro knowledge. A person enters a university, registers for university requirement courses where 20 hours or so are done by knowing basics, and then about 60 hours or 50 hours of his specialization, then proceeds to his master's or PhD, and further specializes in an area without knowing holistic approach of knowledge. Ethicalization means when you have a holistic approach. That's why I'm avoiding the word Islamization. Is it ethical for me as a chemist to create a substance which is very good and effective in one area of human problem, but after its use of 2 years or 3 years, is going to disturb the whole body mechanism? Most of clinical tests are done artificially, not actually. It is the pharmaceutical organizations which hire people, fund them, provide them material, and then they come up with a scientific analysis of that chemical which is going to be marketed. It's only after 10 years of its use you discover its negative effects actually. Although they say we have done clinical tests, which means first on animals, then human beings, all is done evidenced. Because it is not holistic. It is not looking for the whole human being, looking for that micro problem in human body, which is addressed by way of clinical tests. If you keep this crude example in mind, when we are resolving economic issue in Pakistan, in Malaysia, anywhere, are we also considering its ethical dimension, social dimension, political dimension, or just trying to resolve the economic issue? Obvious example is when oil prices increase, price of commodities increases. You create a mechanism to bring down prices somehow, but you cannot go to the lowest level because of human factors. If a merchant has become used to sell a product at 90 ringgit and you want to bring it to 30 ringgit, he can never do it. Maybe a few ringgits difference because of fluctuation of the market. Human nature. Unless you look for holistic approach. Islamization or ethicalization invites human mind to think holistically. How you are going to impinge on environment, human nature, future of humanity, not just immediacy, but ultimacy. That's why Al-Akhirah is basic Islamic theme. It's not just a faith, it's a theme that tells you about what is to be ultimately achieved. And unless that is kept in mind when you are developing political system, economic system, how can you call it holistic? So ethicalization means all those themes which are in the Quran and Sunnah, they need to be kept in mind. Now you said that non-Muslims, okay. For you, Al-Akhirah is a Islamic terminology. But for a non-Muslim, the word outcome leads to same kind of phenomena. When you say, what are the KPIs? What do you mean by that? You mean this KPI is an outcome. Therefore, ethicalization means your KPIs should be positive, holistic. Therefore, it's only a matter of understanding the mind of the non-Muslim and using a language that tells the person what we are doing as ethicalization is not proselytization. We're not converting you from Buddhist or Hindu to a Muslim. No, all we are saying is you remain Hindu, but you develop a holistic approach. That is first step towards Islam. If anyone develops that approach, then you have next step automatically coming forward. My whole life has been based on this understanding of Dawah. I look on issues from Dawah perspective, how they are going to bring an outcome, how ethical change can make human beings more close to Islamic approach and open them up, give them a chance to think differently. And then it's the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not my job to convert people. My job is to lead them to a point where they may or may not accept Islamic approach totally. But we should present Islamic paradigm not with a bias of Islam. If you say all Tamils should Islamize their economy, that makes sense at all. But if you say you are Tamil, but you have your life fragmented, on Sunday you are doing this, Monday you are opposite, Tuesday you are different. Instead of these 5 gods, let's have one common objective, one common target. Don't use theology, but go for the conceptual understanding of theology and apply those concepts, those themes. Those themes will bring the minds of people together. They will open up. And once they open up, nothing wrong in talking about theology. It's a systematic step intellectually to communicate what is truth and ultimately transform the thinking process.
Thank you very much, Prof. Anis, for your response. Can we have some other questions? Yes, brother Junaid from IIUM Islamabad.
Yes.
And now in IIUM
He is
Malaysia.
from both universities.
Okay, go ahead.
Related to same, I think there is a confusion also among the students as well as in academia, regardless of going into the term, regardless of going into the term, what term should we call or this idea. If we look at this concept or idea of Islamization, or whatever you call it, where do we stand now? Because those other party or other group, they say now this has not succeeded. It is failed. It has been failed. So how can we address this critique, or where do we really stand? How can we understand this? The graph is going parallel or down or upward. So this is the thing we need to understand.
Prof, to add further to what's been said by him, some people prefer to use humanization. So can you also shed light on that?
Jazakallah. You see, any judgment about success or failure can be based on a conceptual analysis and empirical evidence. Conceptually, if ethicalization, Islamization, integration, all those lead to a holistic approach, then we should try to judge, is holistic approach better or a fragmented approach conceptually? and let the person discuss, and you join in discussion and showing that holistic approach means all these aspects taken care. While if we confine to one single dimension, this is the outcome. And naturally, holistic approach should be better than a partial approach. Empirical evidence, if this movement that is started and also resulted into creation of triple IT, for example. And triple IT came with over 200 research works. And those research work are welcome, appreciated by people. And some may differ with them, nothing wrong in that. Then this is an empirical evidence of production. If that thought has produced that many books, then it's not just rubbish. It has some substance. And that thought is not confined to these 200 publications, but what Iqbal, what Maududi, what Sayyid Qutb, what Yusuf al-Qaradawi, what many others have produced, Muhammad al-Ghazali, is no different than calling for this holistic approach in life. And these are the works which are enlightening, which make sense, which people love to study. So empirical evidence as well as conceptually, the claim that it is not a clear approach does not hold any water. It doesn't matter whether you call it is integration of knowledge or any other term, but so long as we are talking about holistic approach, it remains the same. Now, Samim, you raised the question.
Some people prefer to use
Yeah.
humanization.
See, when we say humanization, then automatically the historical mind goes back to Erasmus in Christianity. It is Erasmus who gave to Christianity concept of humanization, later on developed by many others. Humanization means that you have a concept of human being. Now, is that a holistic concept or a concept based on materialism? Humanism was the rejection of spirituality. That human mind which led to the positivist approach. It's humanism that made way for positivism. Auguste Comte will not be there if the view of humanism was not there. And that meant irrelevance of any kind of theology, any kind of divine guidance, any kind of ethics, but individual. So humanism is not an appropriate term to represent. Nevertheless, Islam is the only faith which addresses human fitrah and provides divine guidance which is appropriate for fitrah. Others are not appropriate for fitrah. Crude example, if you use cosmetics to beautify your face, you may think you are beautiful, but ask your skin, what have you done to her? Skin is corrupted by cosmetics because cosmetics are all chemicals. And poor skin never feels happy with cosmetics. So you may develop pigments sometime after using all those cosmetics. Fitra is beautiful. Nature provides you. Skin has its automatic process of lubrication. You don't have to lubricate unnecessarily. Therefore, Islam is the most suitable for human fitra, does not mean humanism. Humanism is atheism, actually.
Please.
Please.
One sister is behind of you.
Yes, sister. Can you come here?
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I'm Ashraf from Pakistan and doing my PhD in English here. Sir, my question is that, as you said, that we have to decolonize our thoughts and we have to do something like we have to come out of the Eurocentric approach. Sir, do you think that to what extent all the universities are on the same page
Embrace
to
this
embrace
idea.
this idea?
And
And how
as you
as
have
you
given the example of
of
the lines we
in
get in our
nursery.
nursery.
And
And I
I
came
came
to know about this approach of
Islamization
Islamization when I'm like grown
and
up and
doing my
doing my
master's,
master's, PhD.
But
But unconsciously,
the
the colonization is
inside my
deep inside my.
So is it gonna happen with our new generation also? Is it the new generation is also gonna know about the Islamization of the knowledge when they'll be like 26 years old, they'll be listening something like this in the conferences? Or are we doing something to do the Islamization and all this practically deep into the roots of our next generation? That's what I'm concerned of. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. I'm so glad that you raised this question. The process of decolonization is not a matter of decolonizing your concept of state or concept of society or concept of family, but it means every single human activity to be re-examined. It's a new vision. It's a rediscovery of your own self, your environment, and society. And that's why it's a lifelong process. It cannot be done in a course of 3 credit hours done on Islamization of knowledge. That may be a beginning. The fact of the matter is anyone who's living today is a victim of Eurocentric paradigm of knowledge and truth. Truth and knowledge both are understood in the Eurocentric tradition globally because it's a global colonization of mind. And unless all universities realize that, they may not agree on ethicalization, but they must realize how colonized they are. They cannot think otherwise. When you call development, is it not Weber that tells you what's development? Then talk human personality. Is it not Carl Jung or Freud or B.F. Skinner or other behaviorists who are in the back of your mind? That your personality is introvert, extrovert, whatnot. All these terms are defined by Eurocentric tradition, not by anyone else. You may have read that book in Persian or Arabic or Urdu, which is a translation of those ideas. And those go deep into your soul, as you said. So it's an ongoing process, but once you are aware of it, the process has started. Now you have to recoil all that process and try to reach ultimately to what the Quran and Sunnah provide us as global or universal ethical principles for everything. For whatever human being needs to do, may that be family matters, academic matters, economic matters, you have very clear guidance and principles based on which a new structure can be created. So it is a long process. I do not think IIU or RIFA has a right to impose on other universities their approach. But I believe if I'm given authority in IIU Malaysia, as it was some time back, or if I have any authority in RIFA, then I should do my best in my own domain. And let that work out later on and be proven right or wrong. If IIU Malaysia has a faculty who are fully aware of these problems and they are sharing these ideas with young minds, then I think process is going on. And no one can deny this right of intellectual liberty to any university. So what we are doing in IIU or RIFA is exercise of intellectual liberty. They have their liberty. They may not agree. But once we succeed in transforming life of our students with a changed vision, then they become instrumental in changing society. Social change can only come when this process starts. And I'm glad to see within my own lifetime, in Malaysia particularly, there are young people who are now at responsible positions and they can influence policies of the state who are product of this university. So it's, alhamdulillah, a great contribution of not just me, but many persons who were involved in it. Abdul Hamid particularly, a very dear friend of mine. We worked together for decades. I knew him when he was doing his PhD. We worked together on many organizations and a lot of work was done by him and many others. So all these joint efforts of people have led to this stage, and I believe that inshallah this Shajar Tayyaba will further grow and will be able to benefit not only a quote unquote Malay, but everyone in Malaysia. Islamization does not mean monopoly of Muslims. No, it has those universal principles which make life of a Tamil, a Chinese, a Sikh more pleasant, more enjoyable. If those principles are followed by people, they will feel more comfortable. So this has to be shared and shared without any kind of biases, with the openness of mind, without claiming any property right on those concepts. Is that clear? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. There is another question. Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Can we go one by one?
One by one.
One by one.
One by one.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, Doctor. This is a clear opportunity for me to ask you directly. So, as we were having mini or short discussion to this group about this Islamization of knowledge. So, I want to ask your insights on the SDGs. Like we know that Sustainable Development Goals was established around 2012 by the United Nations, right? So this SDGs was constructed and established with these 17 elements. Therefore, with the concerns of IIUM, this university was proposed this 18th element, which is spirituality. So, is it we can consider it as part of Islamization efforts, or it is something that we what is like from this SDGs?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
So SDGs are essentially a product of a Eurocentric mind to introduce globally an intellectual slavery in all areas of planning and development, which are defined by 17 SDGs and 54 objectives. Now, these SDGs are not developed by involvement of rest of the world, except a group of UN experts who look on HDIs from their viewpoint. HDIs determined by them, what is Human Development Index. That can be achieved by these SDGs. And therefore, they use all those terms which may appear very harmless to you. But those harmless terms are known as euphemisms. Euphemism simply means that you call a person slightly naive instead of calling him stupid. If you call stupid something bad, you say slightly naive, people think it's okay. So when the SDG says inclusiveness, does it mean inclusiveness of elimination of race? No. It means accepting immorality as morality. It's not said that we want to legalize homosexuality, but said we want to have inclusiveness. Every single word has etymology. Etymology means origin of the word, conceptually, which not everyone has time to do. When you are listening to a lecture or reading a book, do you have time to go to every single term and look for its meaning? No. You just accept it. Therefore, each SDG has a deep racial, Eurocentric agenda, how to control people. Having said that, if SDG says spirituality, let's exploit that. Let's interpret that as saying that the white man will feel happy when we say we are doing spirituality by doing Islamization. If that is the purpose, your strategy is not to annoy the white man, but do what you are doing, do it. But you should be aware of the Eurocentric, or sorry for using white man term, but that's how the facts are. If you want to use their terminology, then define those in your own context. But don't accept that terminology as it is used. The whole concept of family, the whole concept of economy, the whole concept of governance, everything is covered in those 17 SDGs from a purely Eurocentric viewpoint, which has to be imposed on the world. If you do not do it, we'll not give you educational aid, economic aid, so and so. We have conditions. It's a grip of Eurocentric capitalism on rest of the world. So knowing that if you want to avoid harm and do something beneficial, nothing wrong. Hikmah means that you even use shaitan for your own good achievement. What's wrong? If shaitan can do some work for me, which brings good, nothing wrong.
Will he cooperate? Will Shaitan cooperate with us?
Well, sometimes he may.
Okay.
If you are more smart,
Okay.
if you are more smart, then you can use him.
Okay. So can you move on to the next question, sister? We'll come to you, brother. Can you come to the microphone? You can take.
Assalamualaikum, Professor. I think the Pakistanis have colonized the question and answer session. I'm also from Pakistan and ex-Rifa University employee as well. So, Professor, in Islam, we know that human is not just a body and it is a soul. It is therefore when a person dies, we don't say it is my brother or father, but we say that it's a dead body. And there are certain time, like people are alive, but they say that أجسامهم قبور قبل الموت, like their bodies have become the graves of their souls because they have already died. So we know that before colonization, we had a holistic system of education whereby not only the body needs, material needs used to be catered, but also the spiritual needs used to be catered for. And then when the people used to study like the outer knowledge, the ulum al-zahiri, they used to go and study the ulum al-batini, so that when before they go to the practical field, they can be a holistic person, so that they don't exploit the resources out there, but they work as a Khalifatul Allah on earth. So how today the universities are just focusing on the outer needs of like how our graduates' employability is so high, and we are just looking at the criteria of how many marks they have in the previous, and to give them the education, like the admission to the universities. Because Allama Iqbal says that like ए शेख बहुत अच्छी है मकतब की फजा, लेकिन बनती है बयाबा में फारूक सुलेमानी. The maktab are fine, nice buildings, all this operation systems and everything. But then the internal, the soul can only be nurtured through spiritual needs. How the university should focus on also developing the internal soul of the human, so that they can go out and then contribute positively to the society.
Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very
Very
much.
important
Thank you very much.
question.
Please.
You have used various very important concepts in your question. And I'm glad to see that our young generation, alhamdulillah, has an enlightened mind and in a desire to not only increase their knowledge, but also feel proud of their heritage, like Iqbal and many others, which provide you with the basic Islamic concepts in their literary writings. So I'm glad to hear from you this question. The fact of the matter is, what you have been calling as Batini and Zahiri, as spiritual, each term has its own background. Spirituality is understood in terms of certain very inner experiences which are very much confined to an individual. How do I feel spiritually when I listen to a recitation of the Quran or to a oration by a scholar is a very personal experience. Therefore, it is understood that my spiritual experience is confined to myself. Islam invites for total human transformation. And spirit and matter are not two separate entities, as Iqbal has elaborated. Read Iqbal, Reconstruction, and there he often says that it is spirit which transforms itself in space-time. He is using spirit not just for soul or nafs or for non-material existence, but he is using it in a holistic sense. Because other writings of Iqbal critically censor tasawwuf. Spirituality is understood as something near to tasawwuf, mysticism. Iqbal is highly critical of that. He calls mysticism as a malaise of Muslim Ummah, disease of Muslim Ummah. So terminology is to be properly examined, and we should not just define Islam in terms of what is internal and external. When we use something from batin, then again we open a Pandora's box. Because batin again is very personal. And batin refers to those understandings which have covers over covers. You uncover them gradually. These are hijabat in terms of so-called spirituality. One hijab after the other, till you discover what is truth. Now, that may be very good, enjoyable area. And when I studied and taught mysticism and practiced mysticism, I enjoyed that very much. But you read Al-Munqidh min Dalal, and you will find the reality of mystical experience. Ghazali, in the treatise, talks about how he finds even this not a satisfactory ultimate experience. So instead of dividing Islam into Batini and Zahiri and spiritual and non-spiritual, the best is to consider Islam as a holistic way of life, which takes care of my personal needs, social needs, spiritual needs, intellectual needs, whatever you call them. And you cannot confine Islam to any one single area. Intellectualism is not by itself anything. Same spiritualism, not by itself anything. There is a internal synergy. Without that synergy, it makes no sense. If we say that I have a spiritual self of my own, then can I share that with you? If I say I have only intellectual existence, can it give me a total personality? That's why I've been saying from beginning, Islamic approach is not fragmented and divided in separate entities, but it's a holistic approach, total human being, all human needs, not exclusive domains, but totally inclusive personality. That's why when a person becomes Sufi, normally he is detached from many things. And even when attached, then attachment leads to nihilism, non-existence, becomes Haq himself. So all these divisions are to be avoided in order to develop a holistic Islamic approach.
Thank you very much, Prof. Let me give a chance to one question from the Zoom first, okay? There is one question from Nuruddin Akbar. He has two questions and they are important. Prof, if the term ethicalization of knowledge is used, it's not that the term still close to the Islamization of social sciences and does not include the Islamization of other fields such as natural sciences, for example, which require more than ethicalization, but the integration of metaphysics and physics. Question number one. Question number two, something related to that. Prof, I agree when you call Islamization a civilization project, so that there can be no one person who is given credit to build a civilization. But when you state that the most important thing in Islamization of knowledge is to get out of Eurocentrism, then how do you distinguish it from post-colonial, decolonial, even Occidental traditions that also seek to get out of Eurocentrism?
Thank you very much. You see, Orientalism and Occidentalism are purely Eurocentric creation. It was the colonialist mind who wanted to understand the Orient. Therefore, with every contingent of the army, a priest was sent and sometimes a sociologist or anthropologist also accompanied, and they try to study that phenomena in order to guide the colonizer how to control the mind and soul of the colonized. So Orientalism began as ethnographic studies, ethnic studies, cultural studies to help the colonizer in enslaving the mind and soul of the people. Therefore, both are Eurocentric creation. My concern is that when I call ethicalization, I do not leave it loose, that I define that ethics for me are those universal values which are given by revelation and sunnah. These are two, what I call them, non-variables. In my writings, I use this term particularly, that these two are non-variable. Others are variable. Your qiyas and ijtihad and ijma are variable. But Quran and Sunnah are not variable. So ethicalization means based on these two non-variables, which are for the whole of humanity, not for Muslims. We transform knowledge. Knowledge does not mean social sciences, but knowledge means social science as well as applied sciences. In a very humble effort at RIFA, we have developed what we call RIFA Aspired Student. It's a paradigm which we have developed where we find that our student outcome should be based on someone who is permanent learner, who is confident person, who is socially involved, and who has responsible behavior. These four outcomes. Based on that, we make a scheme of what values support it. And based on that, we tell our faculty members in each RIFA is not Islamic, quote unquote, but applied science university. Mainly computing, medical science, dental, pharmacy, rehab sciences, veterinary sciences, social sciences. So majority of areas are not so-called metaphysical areas, but physical areas. And there we ask our faculty members to keep these values in their mind and integrate those in the curriculum. It's not a matter of a seminar on Islamization once in a semester or once a year, but it's a matter of within the curriculum, those things to be integrated so they become part of their thinking process. And this is what we call ethicalization. It's an effort to change the knowledge tradition which is existing. But that's a very small effort. And I believe that wherever a person is having authority, he is accountable for that, not for the whole world. So what I'm talking about is not just theory. I'm talking about what we are doing practically as an example. And what we did in this kulliyah, when, as Prof. mentioned, we were designing our curriculum, then we designed it in a way that you have an integration of Islamic values. Those who were studying sociology, we said they must study Sharia. So Sharia is part of society, sociology. Those who were studying psychology, we said they must take Dawa as their minor, integration. The co-designing and the content were developed keeping in mind this approach. And that's how we had the whole kulliyah developed from the beginning. So this again was an exercise. And that's why I was brought by Abdul Hamid, who we were like real brothers. He knew that since I was involved from beginning, I can help him in translating this dream, which was there for over 35 years. And I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us opportunity to establish this faculty, which has been playing a role. So if these two universities succeed in transforming mind of young people, then you have at least 30,000 students, which means around 100,000 family. 100,000 families change with these 30,000 students. You think it's something small, unachievable, unmeasurable, only metaphysical thinking? No. If life of one person changes and one family changes, you have changed at least 5 or 6 people at one time. And if you multiply that by the total population of students in the university, in these two universities alone, then you have made a great beginning. Mind you, intellectual revolutions are never brought by masses. Only a few people who come forward, share their ideas and lead and bring change. So intellectual foundations are very important, and once we do it, then we should leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he wants, he will make it succeed. If he does not want, no one can make it succeed. With all our efforts, we cannot succeed. So in trust with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if these efforts are made, I am sure every graduate of Islamic University Malaysia and of RIFA will be able as a torch bearer of this new approach, and that will transform the whole nation, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Now, before I proceed to next question, we have a QR code posted on the door. Please scan and then fill in the evaluation form, which will be very useful for us to know your feedback. Okay, Prof. Tahir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. I feel very honored first, and also have a feeling of gratitude, because it is not that easy to talk in front of your guru. And Prof. Anis is one of my great teachers, if he is not the greatest of them. I remember I took 2 courses with him, and they were very essential courses. A course on Islamization of knowledge, and the other one on research methodology. And they are still resonating in my memory and in my mind, as if they happened yesterday. But it is already almost 30 years or more than 30 years since that happened. And alhamdulillah, here we are. And I'm really very happy that we have been following his reflections this morning, which have touched on multiple issues, from historical dimensions to terminology, to people and life journeys of many prominent scholars, to labels and names of issue, what kind of terminology should be using, what is the impact. All these have, of course, it's not that easy to comment or question on each one of these aspects, but I just will select a few of them, and allow me, Prof. Anis and my dear audience here, to come forward and to speak my mind. I totally agree with what Prof has been saying regarding the birth or emergence of the idea of Islamization of knowledge. And alhamdulillah, I have been following his wisdom. I have been teaching courses on Islamization for the last 25 years to both master and PhD students. And I have always insisted on the fact that the wheel has already been invented. We need not reinvent the wheel. And the idea of Islamization, or whatever you call it, has been there in the minds of so many prominent scholars, not only in the contemporary age, but long in the past. And here comes the answer to my good brother who asked why our scholars of the past, Ghazali and others, did not use such terms. They did not need that because the dominant paradigm, the prevailing worldview was an Islamic one.
Yes.
And they were all imbibed with this vision. And therefore, when they write whatever they write, when they deal with whatever subjects and fields of knowledge they address, they were guided by this. In our age, we have come across an onslaught for the last 300 years at least. And the colonialism from the 16th century, the Euro expansion outside the continent, and they have been saying it frankly. They said the Europeanization of the world. And there are many books by this title. And then the civilizing mission, the white man's burden, and that all the rest of the world, they are barbarians, or barbaric, they are primitives, and they're even they are underhuman, and therefore we want to lift them up to the level of civilization. So that was the Eurocentric spirit that was guiding, unfortunately, not every, I don't mean that every human being in Europe, but the forces, the powers, expansionist, suprematist classes that have dominated the world and stuff. And they have actually, not only that, they have eliminated total races from the face of the earth. So in our case, when we talk about Islamization, we have to put it in that context. And of course, other people, thinkers from North Africa, from Latin America, to Africa, to Asia, non-Muslims, they have been talking about what they call post-colonial studies and decolonization. People talk about decolonization of the social science, etc., because they have been having the same feeling that what European colonialism did, and not the post-colonialism or neo-colonialism or imperialism, is that to eradicate the local traditions, long historic age traditions of the world, to just impose their own. And therefore, in the name of secularism, in the name of humanism, in the name of scientism, many labels have been used. Progress. So in order to deracinate, uproot the peoples of the world from their long time traditions and convert them to the secular, positivist, August Comte and others, and this has been, of course, shaped by many trends of thought. So here we needed this kind of approach. We may disagree on the name, but the issue that we need a different vision. We need a different paradigm. We need a different approach. And rightly, as pointed out by our dear professor, he was talking about we have to look at a comprehensive man or human being. I remember an article written in 1952 by an Algerian doctor, medical doctor, by the name of Abdelaziz Al-Fahmi, Dr. Abdel. He was a very close friend of Malik bin Nabi. He's a medical doctor, devoted himself to treating people almost freely in the suburb of the city of Algiers. He wrote a short article where he focused on we need to deal with the totality of man. And he was criticizing the Western approaches, especially the French culture. And this gave Malik bin Nabi, I think, a point for him, although he tried to develop a comprehensive approach, a critical approach to Western disciplines to Western thought, but without alienating himself from it, was able to grasp whatever is useful and beneficial, and to develop something that can be consonant and in tune and suitable with the Quranic values. And he came with the idea that we need to be comprehensive in our approach. He did not use the term Islamization or integration, but he was practicing it, doing it. So the issue is that we need not think that we are starting from scratch. We need to take stock of what has been done. Otherwise, we'll be in a vicious circle. And also, we have to take stock of what the critical minds in the Western abode itself. Many scholars who have been talking about dehumanization, who have been talking about reductionism, are actually meeting us somewhere on the path. And therefore, this makes our discourse on Islamization or integration or intellectualization a universal discourse, because Islam has not come to just the local inhabitants of Mecca. It has addressed it, Ya ayyuhan nas. It addresses people not according to what their language or their race or their color, but according to their humanity or according to what they have chosen to be. يا أيها أهل الكتاب يا أيها المؤمنون, because that's what Islam wants to reconstruct the human mind in a different manner that can get free from the enslaving paradigms and institutions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Tahir. Can we go to some more questions? Is okay, Prof?
Yes.
Okay, brother. Yes, please.
My question is, how these scholars such as Ismail Faruqi and Sayyid Rakib al-Attas approaches respond to the critique of Eurocentrism in the modern knowledge system, as you focus more about Eurocentric approaches and Eurocentric culture and the cultural hegemony. So my second point is, how do we tackle and how do we provide very conducive and parallel system and a concept of in the light of Islamization and insanization and humanization? How do we provide this concept?
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Two very simple steps. First is realization of our shortcomings, which is intellectual. And that's what is meant by discovering how deeply we are unconsciously influenced by the Western thought and culture, including language. English language is not just English language. It's a culture. It's a way of thinking. And therefore, when you say in English language, monotheism, then it is not Tawheed. Unfortunately, many Muslim writers use this word. Say Islam is monotheistic. No, Islam is not monotheistic. Islam is Tawheedic. Therefore, language and everything, when you become aware of it, then you start the process. Secondly, discovering your holistic or total personality in the light of the Quran and Sunnah. How the Quran presents human being. How Sirah presents human being. That does not mean a historical study of Sirah and literal meaning of the Quran. That means a thematic understanding of the Quran and a human understanding of Sirah. Sirah has been glorified in a manner that it is meant for a few pious people. No, Sirah is for every human being. So approaching Sirah as guide to provide us total image of man, and that is beyond so-called gender binary. It is not a matter of a male messenger. No, it's a messenger for the humanity, irrespective of so-called gender approach. Islam has no gender approach in the Quran or Sunnah anywhere. So, simple approach, first realizing need for that, which I talked, and that can be done very easily by an objective analysis of your thought. And second step is using the Quran and Sunnah for understanding the personality holistically, how the Quran presents that. By the way, Professor Tahir mentioned about Ustaz Malik. I had the privilege of hosting him when I invited him to America. He stayed with me and we had conversations with him. And he was among those scholars who have pioneered a number of ideas, Quranic study, particularly civilizational study. But Tahir has translated some of his works from French to English. And you must read a number of his writings. He's a very enlightened scholar who discovered Islam, although he was not a theology major and applied science graduate, but he was able to present Islam in totality.
Okay, we get one question from the Zoom also, because they are also saying that why our questions are not entering. So you come to one question, you go to another question. Okay. There is a question here on Zoom. When Islam is the ultimate truth, why do we need to avoid the term Islamization? Can we use the word rectification of knowledge?
Well, again, we are back in square one. I mentioned that my approach from beginning is essentially how to communicate Islamic message without using the word dawah. That means understanding the mad'u, understanding the dawah, and understanding the wasail al-dawah. If you understand these three things, then you have to improvise how you communicate it. It cannot be static. It has to be dynamic. Therefore, using ethicalization is not confined to it. I never said this is the ultimate truth. I said this is only what I think, and you have all liberty to coin another term which is more comprehensive. I don't want to offend an atheist, a non-Muslim, a thorough Catholic or Protestant by saying, I want to Islamize you. Why should I? Why I should not say, look, here are some universal ethical principles. Don't you agree with that? And if he agrees with that, you have one step forward, then you leave it to Allah. He may guide him or may not guide him. My job is finished. My concern is to open the door, and then it is Allah's problem. It's no more my problem. He never asked his prophets to convert people. He asked all prophets to do iblag, balligh, communicate. Never said convert them by force. So if we follow the prophetic example, all prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were obliged to use a language. This is why it says, بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِ. The Quran says we send message in the language of the people. That should be conveyed. So if the language of the people is not loaded with any theological concepts, it's better communication. This is the only reason. Otherwise, I'm not prepared to make any compromise or any apology for Islam. I feel proud of being Muslim. I feel proud Allah has gifted us with the ultimate truth in the form of Quran and Sunnah. And that must be said very clearly. But in terms of methodology, he has also asked us to use hikmah. This is hikmah of dawah, based on which I am convinced after 45 years of being involved in that very process about which you are talking, that now we should review our terminology and use a term which is more easily understandable.
Thank you very much, brother. Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Ahmad from Ahmad. I'm from Bangladesh. So my question is whether it is possible to construct encyclopedic mind based on the Quranic principles. When Quran is saying sometimes about applying Corona sometimes sometimes so how can we make encyclopedic mind on the basis of Quranic principles?
Oh, Jazakallah khair. You have answered the question yourself. If you study the Quran comprehensively and not confined to one single surah or one single concept, then you automatically develop a holistic approach. The Quran wants us to be holistic. That's why it has provided concrete examples from various domains. And all those domains are synergized by one single word, Tawheed. Tawheed envelops all those concepts if we understand it properly.
Okay, thank you very much, bro. So let me come to the Zoom question, because they are very angry with me because I'm not giving them.
Don't make them angry, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Our associate professor who is not feeling well. He's at home. He's following the program on Zoom. His question is, how do you explain the relationship between the dominant concepts or dominating concepts in the contemporary Muslim intellectual discourse of today? Islamization of knowledge, Islamization of human knowledge, integration of knowledge, Maqasid Sharia approach, Tawheedic epistemology, humanization, etc.
Except for the last one, all are nearly same approaches using different terms. It is just like a blind man approaching an elephant and touching his tail or legs and saying he is like a snake or like a pillar, but looking not on the whole elephant. So all those who are saying maqasid approach or other approaches, there are no difference at all. Maqasid of what? Of Sharia. Islamization of what? Knowledge. So these different of terms should not be taken as barriers. I think we should look inclusively and try to reach the essence of whatever is being said without confining ourselves to specific terms. The last one, I don't agree. It's not humanization, but all other terms can be used depending on what is your own personal approach.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yes, from the floor here. Someone was raising his hand. Yes, yes, brother, from Bangladesh. Come to the microphone.
Professor Abdul Salam, I think Islam and Science are better for the rationality in the book. In the preface, you were mentioning about Ziauddin Shaddad and Syed Hussain al-Nasr, saying that they are doing great service to the science. There's nothing called Christian science or Islamic science or like that. So in I mean, late 20th century, it was okay to act, but after 9/11 attack, we have seen like the rise of new atheism. So when the rise of new atheism with the science, they tried to attack all world religions. Then the problem when I was doing research, my topic was scientific worldview and pessimism. So I find like, let's say this is the artifact. If I get within 4,000 or 6,000 years, I can interpret within religious interpretation. But this artifact, it is goes for, let's say, 1 million years or 4 million years. Then there are other artifacts up to the 13.5 billion years of the universe. So that's how the other interpretation, the professor was talking about Eurocentric interpretation, all the interpretation are vanished. Only evolutionary perspective makes sense. Allama Iqbal, when he talked about mysticism, you mentioned just now that he was trying to disregard mysticism in other way, but he used cultural Muslim mystical interpretation to interpret evolutionary perspective. So while I was doing research, when I see the way they try to organize their evolutionary perspective, it makes sense. And those who are being atheist from Muslim lands, they have some sort of rationalistic reason to subscribe to their worldview, scientific worldview or secular worldview. So in that sense, what would be our role as a Muslim like academician to defend our Eastern Islamic worldview? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. You see, knowledge has no boundaries, and therefore, a atheist, a non-Muslim, a hardcore Christian has every liberty to come up with his or her own understanding. Islam does not deny this right. They can claim whatever their research guides them. Our job should be to use the Quran and Sunnah as touchstone, as the basis, and find out whatever they are saying, how far it agrees with Quranic principles or not. If it agrees with that, Alhamdulillah, accept it, because someone who is not Muslim may also reach a point which is near to truth. It's not our only monopoly. If the truth discovered by the person agrees with the revelation, welcome. If not, discard it. Same applies to Muslim scientists. If Al-Farabi, Ibn Tufail, or Ibn al-Arabi, if they talk about a phenomena which is no different than Upanishads, we don't accept that. That may be a great name, makes no difference. So we should apply same criteria to Muslims as well as non-Muslims. The criteria is Quran and Sunnah. And Quran and Sunnah provide you complete guidance on what is truth and what's untruth.
Thank you very much, Prof. Can I read one question from the group? What is your opinion regarding the future of the Islamization project? Some say it has failed and there is no significant output. Kindly highlight your opinion.
Jazakallah khair. I think the presence of Islamic University and many other places, presence of those Muslim scholars who are trying to address in their own areas basic questions from the Quranic and Sunnah viewpoint, that proves progress and success of this approach. You may not call Islamization, give it a different name, makes no difference. But it's essentially a matter of relevance of Islam to contemporary age. The whole purpose of the movement is how Islam resolves issues human beings are facing in different areas of life. Therefore, economic issues, political issues, social issues, how, for example, family. Family is an area which is a crucial, critical, and highly exploited in present society. Now, how Muslim scholars look into it and come up with a Quranic and Sunnah solution is Islamization. So it's not a matter of a few persons who have been attributed the name of founders of it. I have repeatedly said that there is no single founder of this concept. It is incorrect. There is a whole series of scholars who have been talking about it currently and before and in future also. Therefore, we should not associate intellectual movements with individuals.
Thank you very much. Okay, any question from the floor? Okay.
Please.
Yes, sister. Please come to the microphone.
Just now, Assalamu alaikum. I'm from Pakistan. And I want to ask that integration of knowledge and Islamization of knowledge. These things, two things. Sometimes, if like I'm a student, so when we listen these all terms here, sometimes so then we get confused, and where should we go? Islamization of knowledge, integration of knowledge, and like ethicalization. So, but where should a student like who is starting to read, where they have to move? Sometimes these terms confuse a student because some are saying Islamization of knowledge is old, some say integration knowledge is modern. So where a student have to learn?
Jazakallah.
Thank you.
Suppose this piece of paper is defined by someone as not black, not yellow, not green. Does it make difference? It remains white. Therefore, you may call integration, Islamization, makes no difference. Nothing confusing in that. So long as you are applying Quran and Sunnah for resolving certain intellectual issues, you are doing this work. You may call it whatever you like. Don't call it ethicalization. Give your name. I don't mind. But the objective has to be knowledge should be synergized, gelled together with Islamic ethical values. Why I use that? Because my approach is Sharia is a manifestation of Islamic values. It's not the otherwise. Islamic values that are manifested in Sharia. It is the value of life as value in the Quran, which gives a legislation on manslaughter, not the contrary. Therefore, values for me are foundational. It is values that need to be the basis. So long these values are the basis, you can call them the way you want. Perfectly okay. We have same process going on. No difference at all.
Thank you very much, Prof. So this will be the last question, brother. He has just graduated from the Department of Astrology. He's from Sri Lanka.
Not graduated, completed PhD. PhD.
Yeah, PhD.
Completed PhD.
Yeah, just graduated.
Graduated.
Yeah, graduated. Yes. Completed his
PhD is higher.
Okay, no problem. Okay, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For your valuable explanation. I am Ashad, I am from Sri Lanka. So I'm coming from Muslim minority context. So in our context, as you know, some words are very problematic, like even like using Sharia, Islamization, very problematic. So the word using ethicalization is very much rational and suitable, especially for the Muslim minority context. But I have a serious concern using this ethicalization in our country, because our country is Buddhist majority country, and also we have Hinduism also. So they have their own understanding of ethics. So how we can solve this issue using this ethicalization of knowledge? Thank you so much.
Jazakallah. Islam is not meant for Arabs, Persians, or for Muslims who are living in a majority context. I hate to use the term minority. I think even if there is one Muslim in a country, he is not minority. He is by himself an ummah. And as a representative of ummah, this person should not feel pressurized because of his singularity. Tawheed is always superior. Even when you are one person, the Quran defines you as more stronger than 20. In Al-Anfal, the Quran says if you are just 20 persons, you will overcome 200. Which means this concept of minority, which is psychological oppression, should be taken out of the mind of Muslims where they are not in majority. I have been talking about it to my very dear brothers who have used this term for quite some time, but for any reason they don't accept it. I will not name them, very big scholars who have been doing that. Anyhow. Secondly, how you do it? Very simple. Tell me, although you have graduated as a PhD, but how much time have you spent personally in studying 3 baskets? How much time have you studied in reading Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, their Ramayana, and many other texts? When you want to talk to people of faith, then you must know their faith directly from those sources. If you go through them, you will find various concepts that may be near but not the same. That's what the Quran says. O people of the book, let's come and talk and begin with 2 things. No shirk and al-akhirah. Did not say first accept this person as prophet, then we'll talk. No. That means discover directly in their sources what is maybe near. And then you start. Did Buddha ever said, kill people? Did he ever said, be dishonest, cheat? No. Do you find in Manu's teachings, kill everyone? Therefore, our dialogue should start from their own sources, where certain things are similar. I'm again saying similar. It's incorrect to convert one concept of a religion to another and say this is the same. No, it's not same. When they say we believe in one God, they are not same. Their God is in a hierarchy of gods. Brahma is not the only and ultimate. Brahma is at the top. Elsewhere, it may be Ishvara. In third place, it may be Ganesha. And all are taken by them as their ultimate gods, regional gods. We cannot say they are Tawheed, although they claim. So our terminology and their terminology is totally different. Yet there can be a common ground which brings near and helps in communication. Start with that and then come to the point I have just mentioned, how we can have a holistic personality based on values. And then you will find their values somewhere fail. They can go up to some point, but not ultimately same as the Quran Sunnah has provided.
So this is the work is important. So you have to read.
Yeah. No, actually, Prof, I did my master's in Buddhist studies.
MashaAllah, very good.
So I was honored to be the first Sri Lankan Muslim to having master's from Buddhist University.
Good, very good, very good.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, she has some. Can we take the question?
It's up to you.
Okay, please go ahead, sister. No problem. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, for winding up this discussion, because we're going towards the end, I am only having one question. Can you just give us a single tip to let this thought flourish in our students, in our educationists, in our society? How we can flourish this term more and more in the minds of the educationists? Because, you know, if I am a vice principal in an institute, so if I think that, okay, I wanna do something in my institute which is regarding all this matter and I want to bring a change, something like that. So can you give me a single tip to do that for the implementation of this? Thank you so much.
First and foremost, stop sermonization. Don't sermonize, but try to bring whatever concepts you have in the teaching methodology and personal behavior with the students. Your behavior will give them confidence in what you are saying. And you're putting values within the text you are teaching will inculcate in their mind seeds for integration. Very simple approach. Doesn't have to be a highly pedagogical philosophy that you internalize and then you apply that. As I said, I'm very much against horrified terminologies. I believe in simple approach. And that's what I learned from your area. Whatever Buddha said was the simple truth. It was not Indian philosophy of complicated terminologies and processes, but very simple. Dukkha, relief of dukkha by doing this, very simple. So you have to make things simple, not complex and apparently very scholarly.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think we have now come to the end of our session. We have taken 2 hours and 30 minutes. Very fruitful and a very long session. In fact, this session has been attended by 150 students on the Zoom.
MashaAllah.
And then the hall is full. In fact, we wanted to book a bigger hall than this, but all halls are full because of various activities organized by Kulliyas and centers. Otherwise, we could have gone to a bigger hall than this. Well, Professor Mumtaz, do you want to say anything? You smile.
I know he was thinking on many questions.
But I'm not giving you any opportunity.
Yeah.
I just want to say that 80% participants are either current student or my former student.
MashaAllah.
This semester, master course, I have 40 students.
MashaAllah.
And I send them message, so most of them are here.
Good. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, Prof. Dr. Anis Ahmad, thank you very much for your articulation. We have received too many appreciative comments in my handphone from different parts of the world. They are asking for recorded video. We have recorded. We will send the recorded video to those people who are asking for it. And then we have also more than 500 fellows in the IIMU. They are from 35 countries. So they are also watching our program from different countries. We will upload the recorded video in our
IIMU
fellowship
group,
group,
inshallah.
inshallah.
We all thank you very much for your
articulation.
I,
On behalf of the International Institute for Muslim Unity, express my deep sense of gratitude and appreciation
for
for all
of you
for your presence.
And I also thank the audience who are following
the program on the Zoom.
Once again, thank you all very much.
Wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Please show your